Alright, let's see what we can do. I will go to select mode, dark on timer, film developer, which you may have seen, and the third item is options. Then once again you can go through Maya settings like screen brightness, what default mode you want to put in, and the second item on this menu is power brick. And it says loud and clear underneath, connect only one power brick to change settings. This is important. This is once again a technical limitation. We made some software changes that turned out to be incompatible with the hardware, but the PCBs were already ordered and assembled at that time. Long story short, you can only hook up one power brick that you want to configure. Probably not a serious limitation for most people, because most of you have only bought one power brick. But for those who are planning on buying multiple, keep it in mind. Anyway, let's click once again power brick A, ID 12. It's this one, says power brick 3 right underneath, because it has 3 sockets. Then we have power brick B, which is not hooked up right now. We will do that later. And I can add a new power brick here. But we are going to be setting up the first one. Then the next item in the menu, it says states. And what are states? Well, in the beginning of the video and a few times in the video I said this is for your enlarger, this is for your safe light, and this is for your room light. But actually it doesn't really operate that way. You are not configuring what each output does, you are configuring what output you want to be turned on in which state. And the states are, for instance, default states. By the way, images of a power brick 4, even though we have a power brick 3, this is all the remaining bugs that I will have to fix. If you have a power brick 3, you will only see 3 plugs here. Anyway, default state is this state. Default state is what you want to happen when your power brick is turned on. As I said earlier in the video, when you turn the unit on, it automatically turns the safe light on. This is because the safe light is connected, hooked up to the second plug, and by default the second plug is on. For instance, if you also want to have your room light turned on, you can just click here, go here and click to enable the third plug in the default state. Default state is what happens when the power brick sees power for the first time. Our second state is a power off state. This is once again what happens if you take no action within 5 seconds, or when you long click the room light button to turn everything off. This is what happens, and by default it just turns everything off. And the third setting is your safe light state. Once again, in the safe light state, we have the second plug engaged, which means only the safe light will be turned on. The fourth state is the room light state. As I've said, the room light and the safe light plugs have been turned on. Let me hit the settings and demonstrate to you really quickly how once again this works. Right now, if I click to switch to safe light mode, safe light's second plug is turned on. In the room light, when I click, when I go to the room light button, both of them are turned on. If I want the safe light to be turned off, I can just go to the second item and click with the right dial. So again, safe light, when the safe light's on, and I come back to the room light, only the room light will be turned on and the safe light will be off. Once again, let's go to the safe light, turn the safe light on. Let's click to have the safe light on and go to the room light state, and you'll see both lights have been turned on. While I was talking about this, my Sony just ran out of battery as usual. and I hope we didn't lose any of the video. I've got to replace that camera sometime. Now let me turn the room lights back on. This is how you configure the states. The four main states that you'll encounter are default, which is what happens when you turn the device on, power off, which is what happens when you click the off button, safe light, and room light. The next of the states are color pre-expose, paper developer, fixer, paper flasher, and solarizer. Now let's talk about those. Let's go back to the darkroom timer mode. And darkroom timer. Actually, once again, let me turn the video lights off. It will be easier for us to see. As I was saying, if you are in the single grade mode, or you can change your grade, maybe you are doing a split grade print and you want one of the channels to be, say, low contrast and the other one should say high contrast, maybe grade 5, or if you want to do a color print, you can dedicate another of your channels to grade color, and right there on the left hand side it will say color instead of high contrast 5 or single grade. It will just say color. And how this differs to normal operation is, now when you are printing in color you have to be in total darkness, so when you click the room light button, Maya did just turn all lights off because my color pre-expose mode was set to all sockets off, and also same with the expose button. First click will just turn all lights off, and the second click will just start my enlarger. It was set to 10 seconds, I believe, so it's about to be done now. Yeah. And then I can just click a button to go back to my room light mode. Anyway, this is how the color mode works, and this is how you make a color print with Maya. How about the others? Let's go to grades and select develop. You can use Maya, maybe you can use channel 6 to time your paper development, or you can use it to time your fixer. Because obviously not for 10 seconds, it's gonna be much longer, but if you choose any of your channels, if you dedicate any of your channels to timing paper development or fixing, you can just once again click start, and again, most of us won't need this as a separate state because most of us just do our development under our safe light. But let's say you have a different safe light setup near your development area where your trays are, or maybe a friend of mine actually has this. He has his development trays connected to some motors, and every time he starts developing, he turns those motors on and it will drag the trays back and forth to agitate the developer and fixer. If you have a setup like this, you can just connect the motors to any of the plugs, and when you start the fixer or developer cycles, for instance, you can just start agitating your developer. Fixer or paper flasher. Again, paper flasher is a state and it's a grade you can choose from the menu. If you have a dedicated paper flasher, you can hook it up to any of the plugs. If you have a power brick 4 with 4 sockets, maybe you can use the fourth one as a paper flasher, or if you don't, you can just configure Maya to use your room light maybe as a paper flasher, or maybe the socket your enlarger is connected to. You can do all sorts of combinations You can do all sorts of combinations for your intended workflow and your darkroom area. And there's another item that you may have seen if you are paying attention. It says enlarger 1, then I can choose an enlarger 2. Let's see what these are. To select mode, go once again to options, power brick. Instead of the states menu we have here, I can go to the second item in this menu, which is the enlargers. And the first setting here is the enlarger count, 2 plus 1 color mode. What it means is I've told my ad that I have 2 enlargers, and the color mode you get by default, we just saw what that is. Even if you set your enlarger to 1, you will still have access to that color mode. And then if you scroll further, you'll see color focus, which turns my enlarger plug on. This is what happens if I'm in color mode and if I click the focus button. Color expose, again, if I'm in color mode, if I hit the expose button, which circuit is going to be turned on, and it's the circuit that my enlarger is connected to. Then we have enlarger 1 focus. This is my main enlarger. This is what gets engaged. This is what gets engaged if enlarger 1 has been selected. This is what happens if enlarger 1 has been selected, and if I hit the focus button, it only turns the enlarger circuit on. Enlarger 1 expose, you see I have 2 circuits selected, because if you remember, when I click the expose button, my enlarger and my safe light would be turned on. So if you want your safe light to stay off during exposure, you can just say turn this one off. Or maybe you want your safe light on while focusing, you can just click your second circuit in here to activate it. Then you have enlarger 2 focus, enlarger 2 expose. What is a well scenario for this? Maybe you actually have 2 enlargers. Maybe your second enlarger is hooked up to circuit 4, and you don't want your safe light to be turned on while using it, or maybe it's your same enlarger but with the safe light off. So you can just do anything with it. There's no limitation. You can choose any circuits. You can even choose your room light when making and using any of the enlargers. Actually, let's see how this one works. Let's go to darkroom timer mode once again, and let me select any grade, and let me select enlarger 2. By default, if I remember right, enlarger 2 is actually my room light, which means when I click focus, yeah, only my room light is turned on. So let's go to the safe light mode. If I click focus, my room light will be turned on. Well, how is this useful? Maybe I'm making a contact print using my desk lamp for 6 seconds. I don't know how long you make a contact print with, and when I click here, my room light will be turned on, and I'll be making contact print timed for 6 seconds, which means you can actually use any of your lights as an enlarger. You can time any of your sockets, not just your enlarger item, not just your enlarger socket. You can use anything, any light source as an enlarger. You can get creative. You can do anything you want to, or you can just use a second or third enlarger. The limit is up to 9 enlargers actually. The limit is up to 9 enlargers. You can set up 9 enlargers and configure each of them separately for its focus and expose functions. The other settings here are settings states enlargers. Turn off after, this is how long it takes when you click the turn off button, 5 seconds. You can choose up to 120 minutes actually. And change ID. If you have more than one power brake, they all come with unique IDs, but if you have a conflict, you can change the ID. You can change their IDs as you'd like. Now let's go for a multiple power brake setup. Let me turn my room lights on once again. And what I'm gonna do is my power brake, as you have seen, is already in the memory. So I'm just going to remove this adapter, and here the plug I have here. Actually, let me change the lens to a wide one once again. Okay, we are back to shooting wide. I have just unplugged Maya because my other power brake already has been connected with the adapter. And this is the Ethernet cable. This is the cable coming from the other power brake. I'm just gonna hook it up to the second plug on the power brake I have, and let me turn everything on. So what's different right now? What's different is the room light, the video lights that I've been turning off and on since the start of this video. They were actually always connected to my second power brake, which was not linked to Maya that we were using, which means I can just control them as my usual room light at the press of a button. I can just, it used to just control some room light over there. Right now I'm controlling all lights in my room with the press of a button. And since I have configured it so well, once again I can just engage my focus and it will turn all lights off. I can just start exposing it. First it will go to my safe light, then I can just expose with my safe light and maybe check focus, and when everything is done, turn all lights on. So it's much more comfortable for me to work with all this. What else we have is, let's go to the other channel, great, and go to Solarize. This was an idea suggested by, there's a, okay, here's another bug. It should have said Sol here, but it says Paper Flash. This is an idea suggested by one of the customers, one of our contributors. He said that he was making Solarized prints and he wanted to time one of his lights on his development tray. And since I've configured all my setup, if I just select my grade as a solarizer, I can just start my countdown, and the light to my right was configured as my solarizer, and now it's going to time for 10 seconds only that light. The solarizer mode is one of those ideas that's been added to one of our contributors. It won't make it to the initial firmware, but it will be available after a while through a free update that you can just install to the timer. Let's go back to the right mode. But it was just a demonstration to say that you can use any of the lights for any purpose with Maya. So why would you have more than one power brake? Maybe you have, like me, a lot of room lights and not all of them are within the reach of your work area. maybe you have more than one enlarger and the other one is in a different bench. And as I've said, since all the states are actually kept in the power bricks, I can just remove Maya from this cable, I can take Maya to another workbench and just plug it in, and it will just control all the same lights with a different enlarger without any issue. Again, the adapter power is saved. There is no adapter here. There is no adapter here. The only adapter right now powering everything is connected to the other power brick hidden in my room somewhere. If you are using more than one power brick, it's advisable to use a more powerful adapter. I will be shipping with 1 ampere. I will be shipping with a 1 ampere adapter. But if you are using more than one and if you want to activate more relays at the same time, you might need a more powerful one. And once again, as a final demonstration, let me just sign off from the room. What I'll do is I'll just hold my room light button to turn everything off. And what's gonna happen is, after 5 seconds, everything but my room lights have been turned off, which means I can safely and manually turn these lights off and go to my workstation to edit this video. When I come back here, if anything is needed, I can just switch the room lights on manually. And since the light switch on my wall is not working, this is quite a blessing for me, because the lights will always be powered through the power brick because I've configured them that way. So I can just turn them off and on, even though Maya is turned off. Anyway, this has been my power brick video. I hope this is good enough that I can finally publish it. Both cameras had acted up a bit during the recording of this video. I hope I haven't missed anything. I hope I haven't missed any of the notes that I want to share with you. So, anyway, see you soon.